everything, but it gives you a feel. But one of the things I would say to you very strongly is it's really important to remember you're working with these energies that belong to the earth and are part of the earth. And for us, they're detrimental, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they should be completely obliterated. I think what we need to think about much more is reharmonizing them so that they're not harmful to us. People have also asked me about correcting them and, about how I detect geopathic energies. I usually do it by sensing. So I go to an area and I sense it. If you do that, the most important thing is to learn how to switch it off, how to switch off that sensing. Because you want to be able to go to an area that you are there to examine, switch it on so that you can do it, and switch it off. And I was talking to somebody over lunch about this, I think it was lunch yesterday, and he was asking me how I do, how I detect geopathic energies, and I was explaining that, and he said, well, how do you switch it on? And I said, well, in my imagination, I've got some antennae that come out my head. And so when I get to a place where I want to check the geopathic stress, the antennae go up. When I've finished the job, the antennae go back. And he thought for a minute and said, I could use a hat. I could have a special hat. And when I go and do the geopathic stress, I put the hat on, right? And when I've finished, I take the hat off, yeah? So you can. So what you're doing is you have a ritual, a mind thing that actually allows you to do this. Yeah. So you need to think about that, because if you keep yourself being actively aware, actively exposed to geopathic energies, you're going to end up getting very sick, and we need to avoid that. And the way to avoid that is by switching it off. Yeah. So you can switch it on or switch it off. As and when you need it, yeah? It's a really important thing to do. How do you learn to do it? It's trial and error, and you have to find the particular way of doing it that works for you. For me, it's the antennae. Somebody else, it might be a hat. Somebody else, it might be just standing quietly and saying, I'm now open to being aware of geopathic energies. You do the work. I'm no longer open to geopathic energies. Yeah, switching it off. So find what works for you, what's the best thing. Finally, I just want to... Several people have talked about Rupert Sheldrake during this conference, and his theories about morphic fields and morphogenetic fields. One of the sad things here is he's clearly well thought of in India. In England, where he lives and where he comes from, he has a very, very different time. And he's a Cambridge University biologist, a fellow of Clare College. So he has all the credentials of a scientist. But he's a scientist who's interested in the paranormal, in how you and I can connect, even though we're not even in the same room or on the same continent. He has some amazing books which I would really recommend to you. He has a book called The Sense of Being Stared At. And he says, we all have this sense of being stared at. And I've talked to scientists about this as a way in to get them to start thinking about subtle energy, about cosmic energy. And I say, have you ever been in a room and you've thought about somebody and you've turned around and they've cut like a crowded room? And they're not supposed to be, you aren't particularly expecting them in the room, but you turn around and they're there, yeah? Or you think about somebody and the phone rings and it's them. I said, that's the sort of connections you get. So he wrote this book, The Sense of Being Stared At. Really interesting, lots of interesting studies. There are studies of, for example, crosswords, he reports about a study where there were 4 crosswords to do. 2 of them had been previously published in a London newspaper. 2 of them hadn't. Right? They were about to be published but hadn't been published yet. The 4 crosswords were given to some students to do. And the students did the ones that had been published faster than the ones that hadn't been published, even though they'd never seen any of them. So it was like lots of people had done them, but that knowledge of doing them is in our energy field. And so they were easier to do. Rats, laboratory rats, learning to run a maze, if that maze is run with a completely different set of rats somewhere else, then those rats learn it faster than the original rats learnt it. Again, because it's in there in the energy field. He's got lots of really good examples like that. He talks about a man who in 1956 did a study about railway accidents in the US. And on the days that a railway accident happened, there would be fewer people travelling on that train. Interesting. Did people know? Unfortunately, he's really, he did a TED talk. Have you heard of TED? Yeah? Okay, he did a TED talk about the scientific paradigm and how stuck the scientific paradigm was and how it wasn't open to the information from quantum energy and stuff like that. And what happened was TED censored it. They took it down. TED is supposed to be that forum for free speech. It is not, in some way, it is a forum for free speech in lots of ways, but challenging existing Western science in the West is like challenging God used to be, or challenging the king used to be. It's really, really difficult. So it's wonderful that you people here really honour Rupert Sheldrake. And I just want to show you this. Wikipedia's entry, Wikipedia again, supposed to be this wisdom of the masses, wisdom of the people. Well, Wikipedia obviously hasn't heard from the people of India, is all I can say, because the entry for alternative medicine is illustrated with this. Miracle cure, truly amazing, works in minutes, guaranteed. Yeah? It's saying we're charlatans. It's saying what we do is unscientific, pseudoscience, misleading. If you've got time, just Google alternative medicine. Look up alternative medicine on Wikipedia. You will be appalled. You will truly be appalled. And it's Western science that is controlling that entry. And, you know, we all have to do everything we can to counter this view that what we do is pseudoscience, rubbish, doesn't get results, isn't applicable in the modern world. So please go out there and do these things. Thank you.